Welcome to the land of Down Under, an island filled with mysteries, tons of nice people, the cutest animals you'll ever meet. I'm going to build my dream village, fill a museum to the brink with bugs and fishes, make millions of things, lose it all by making plenty of wrong choices, and earn it all back. I played 100 days of Dinkum, and this is my story. But before we start, it's character creator time. I let my 5-year-old daughter decide how my character will look, so of course I end up with the most girly girl possible. Let's call the island Bing Dink Town for no other reason than it's fun to say, and let's go. This is South City, the town that we're from, which looks nice in a bleak and depressing way. The story itself is fairly straightforward. Apparently we're the only person who actually responded to the ad of this old lady called Fletch. I mean, an ad that lets you fly off to a dream island and manage it for a sweet old lady. It feels like the starting plot of a horror movie. And then we're on our island. Now, it is heavily inspired by the land Down Under, which makes sense as it is made by an Australian indie developer. I immediately assumed that everything wants to kill me. Straight away we got asked to place down the base camp for our overlord Fletch, who looks suspiciously a lot like the mayor from Paw Patrol. After that I needed to find a dedicated spot for visitors to place down their tent, and of course one for ourselves. Cozy. I chose a central location near a river so we're not too far away from everything. I love that it's next to a river so it looks nice and we can easily fill our time by fishing. Spoiler alert, I probably won't. Part of the information dump that we get from Fletch is the Adventurer's Journal. Essentially this is a book from her father that will give us milestones that we can complete once a lifetime and smaller ones on a daily basis. Completing these should give us permit points, but Fletch is still playing coy with us on what they're actually used for. Then she just gives me a bug net, a sleeping bag, and sends me out to explore. And then I basically do what makes Dinkum so excellent. As I'm exploring the area, taking inventory of everything trying to kill me, including these emus, I realize that there's always something in the vicinity to pick up. It may be these cactus fakes, bush lemons, shells, these yellow flowers, or just tons of bugs. But luckily enough, picking anything up doesn't cost any energy, so I always have something to do. I found a broken radio tower on the beach, but I should be able to repair it if I find the required materials. I just marked it on the map and moved. By the time I head to bed, it's already past midnight and the clock just says late. When this happens, my energy bar is just a sliver big, but by this point my bags were already full and I had nothing else left to do. The next day we meet John, the general vendor guy. Essentially he sells the basic forms of all tools, the table saw, and the most expensive barbecue I've ever seen. So I sell most of everything I found except for the bugs because we're bound to get a museum guy visiting soon enough. And look and behold, these yellow wildflowers go for a ton. With the profit I get myself the table saw, the barbecue, and just a few tools to get started. Fletch also finally fills us in on why we need the permit points so desperately. So essentially in a game where we can do basically everything, we need to get a license before we can do anything. So we need one for farming, one for hunting, one for fishing, driving, vehicles, everything. Now we want some more people to reside on the island like John, so Fletch suggested that I actually build a friendship with him. Wanna know how? Just by asking every day what they want and then do that. Is that how friendships are supposed to work? John wanted 2 copper bars and that means I need to go mining. Now the food that I found the day before came in handy as mining takes the energy out of you literally. I mean, just look at that energy bar going down. I moved on, eventually finding the apex predator of the island, the bush devil. A black Tasmanian devil looking thing that spits fireballs. And here I thought I was going to be playing a peaceful game. Back at the camp, to smelt the copper ore into bars we need a furnace, and Fletch happily showed us how to do that after letting her ramble on for long enough. Most of the day and evening I was just cooking my bush lemons, cutting my planks down to size, and smelting bars in return for friendship. Is it me or does this barbecue look like an apple? The next day we can start construction on a permanent shop for John. Now at this point I'm starting to understand why no one but me responded to Fletch's ad at the beginning of the game. To build John's shop, I need to repay a debt of 75,000 dings, but also provide the building materials. Tom Nook has nothing on this lady. Either way, I bought a few more licenses from the old shrew, decided where John's shop is going to be, and started collecting the building materials required. By the way, if it looks like I have a fantastic layout in mind for this town, I really don't, but I like your confidence in me. Among the building materials I need are 2 tin sheets. Now at this point I've already destroyed a few iron barrels and they seem to be giving these types of items. So I guess I need to find a lot more of those before we can start building John's shop. However, I haven't been getting extremely lucky on finding those. So for the rest of the day I collected a bunch of more materials, built my own workbench, and planted a few palm trees nearby. On day 4 I finally tried to do some fishing, which took me a few fails before figuring out that I actually had to let go of the left mouse button when the fish is struggling to get free. Yesterday I actually bought the metal detector license before finding out that John doesn't sell one of these before he actually gets his permanent shop. So today I immediately unlocked the upgrade for it. This should let me find the old treasure without having to add a metal detector to my steadily growing toolbar. Now I just see small exits everywhere, dig them up and collect scraps of technology from the old world. I'm finding old gears, springs, shiny discs, old keys and of course tin sheets, which I need to build John's shop. Only after delivering them and hovering over the item I figured out that I could also just have made them myself by feeding a tin bar to the table saw. Note to self, read tooltips. The rest of the day I dug up more old treasure, found myself some ear heads that way because it's apparently cold in the desert. They look like headphones so it's fine. Also found this huge gold colored ball that I had no idea what to do with, so I stored it in my tent. Sold everything else that I found to John for ridiculous amounts, bought another barbecue and crafted a cooking table to ramp up my cooking. Day 5 it was raining, which looked very cool. The invisible workers had already started the construction on John's shop and I paid off the loan for it. Selling all this old treasure pays a pretty penny, but I'm probably going to end up regretting it later on. I also started another loan for a notice board through which the villagers can ask for even more favors. The remainder of the day was more of the same as yesterday. I collected more old treasure, found another gold colored ball and started an orchard of yellow wallow flowers that sell for way too much. I also found 2 more broken radio towers and apparently there is one in each corner of the island. Day 6 started with me buying a blue beanie from John as a favor to him. Sure, why not? I just hope that it gets me a discount in his brand new shop that I paid for and supplied the materials for. Yeah, you guessed it, I didn't get any discounts. The new shop has much of the same as before except for new machines like the new furnace, stone grinder, a metal detector that I no longer need and bananas. It's not like I can just walk somewhere and get them for free. But then I noticed the scales in the corner. The 2 amber chunks that I found the days before sold for a combined of 100,000 dinks. The remainder of the day was once again just me collecting old treasure to sell for profit and had me buying a few of the new machines like the improved furnace and the stone grinder that turns stone into cement or shiny stones into ore. I bought a few more licenses that gave me some blueprints for new paths so I knew what I was going to be doing tomorrow. But Theodore had different plans for me. A new visitor showed up, meet Theodore, the museum curator. I happily handed over the bugs that I collected so far because they were starting to take up more than half of my backpack at this point. I really wish there was an option to donate them all at once. At least I get 100 permit points for each donation, which is nice as long as it lasts. He immediately wanted to start building the museum, so I got a deed from Fletch, blazed the building space right across from John's shop and started collecting the required building materials once again. One of the required materials are 10 bags of cement, so the stone grinders were essential for this. Once I turned in all the required materials, I paid off the loan for the museum, another 125,000 dings down the drain. The remainder of the day I just focused on completing my daily milestones, catching a few more fish and tried my hand at some landscaping. As soon as I placed down my first paths, I hated it and I knew I was going to redo it all once I had more of an idea. Talking about good ideas, I bought earlier today the machine manual from John, which shows me what types of materials I can throw in each machine. Apparently I can watch a fish squirm in anguish as it cooks in an open fire. The next day I traded with John for some ninja pants, bought a blue summer dress from him as a favor and bought even more permit points from Fletch. Now I can start trapping and selling wild animals, and on a more bright note I also got some blueprints to craft some fences. PS, day 8 and I'm still not wearing any shoes. After that I caught some fish to throw on the barbecue, no more open campfires for me. I also decided to just go all G.I. Jane on wildlife, just to see how combat would actually work. The kangaroos were the easiest, the crocs, the dingoes and the roly-poly looking hedgehogs were very doable as long as you bob and weave, but this freaky lizard was actually the toughest one out of the lot as he not only attacks quicker than the others, but his electric area attack was also quite strong. At least until he ran across my campfire and lighted himself on fire. On day 9 I lighted myself on fire as soon as I came out of my tent, probably karma for laughing at the lizard. After a quick swim in the river I met Rain, the vendor who will sell me farming tools and seeds for my crops. So I just bought a few beanstalks and all the available tools, did her a favor so she might decide to live here permanently, and then I just set up my farm. So just like in most farming games, these will need to be watered daily, so I decided to just keep the farm quite small for now. Then I paid a visit to the now completed museum. Theodore standing partly behind his desk waiting for me to give him even more animals which he desperately needs. Right now he already has a decent bug collection, but the wing to house all the fish still looks quite barren. Don't you worry Theodore, I'll get right on that. So of course for the rest of the day I fished in the local rivers and mined to level up my mining skill because I desperately need to unlock a new license for better equipment. Day 10 was actually a fairly straightforward day. There was no visitors, so I just focused on doing the daily milestones, favors for the villagers, and more mining and collecting resources like I do always. The biggest news was that one of my crops disappeared. Now I assume the same thing happened like in Stardew Valley. Some random bird swooped in and destroyed it. So at this time I've got no solution for that, as you need a melon or a pumpkin to craft a scarecrow, and I've got no idea how to get either of those. So I placed down a wooden fence around the crops and hoped that would keep out any animals that have an empty stomach. The next day we had Mr. Irwin, our animal wranglers, visiting the town. I'm so glad the developer actually made the legendary Steve Irwin have a role in this game. If you don't know him, look him up, you won't be disappointed. I bought a shook, an animal feeder, and lots of animal food. I also gladly gave Irwin the 2 bags of cement he asked for because I can't wait for him to join the island. I made a little fenced off area behind my furnace for the shook. I ended up calling her Binky, placed the feeder down, a crate right next to it for the 200 bags of animal feed I bought, and made a coop. Doesn't she look cute? After that I went fishing to fill the museum, destroyed the big rocks around camp, and worked a bit more on the fruit tree orchard that I started the day before. PS, no one touched my crops today, so my fence might be doing something after all. On day 12, Irwin leaving town left a hole in all of our hearts. I traded with Theodore for some googly eyes so no one can see my tears. Beside that, I fed my chook, watered my crops, did favors for the villagers, completed my daily milestones, and dug up old treasure for a lot of profit. The next day when I booted the game, the developer had launched the Blooming Spring update. I only realized this because the game was bombarding me with messages that there were a lot new licenses available. A new brewing license, one that lets you create waterfalls, and even one to let you create your own signs. At least I think so, because as I was reading them, I walked into my campfire again. As part of the major update, Fletch also asked me to build a gazebo that we can use in the future for all kinds of events. And if the day wasn't hectic enough, we also had a new visitor called Franklin, who resembled Victor Humphreys from Slime Rancher by quite a bit. It seems as Franklin is going to be our local scientist that can actually use shiny discs to unlock new machines, and then he can actually build them for us in exchange for cash and the old treasure that I've been selling. Didn't I tell you that I would regret selling all that? I've seen that he can craft for us motorcycles, jackhammers, gacha machines, and so on. Like 90% of all the things he can provide us with requires iron bars, which I haven't found yet. So today I only ordered a weather station from him for now, but I definitely want to order something better when we see him again. Beside my hectic morning, I collected the materials for the new event building. I also bought a wheelbarrow from John so I can start landscaping the town. But right now my focus is to unlock the deep mining license from Fletch so I can get my hands on some iron. On day 14, I received the weather station from Franklin in the mail. It does exactly what you expect. It tells me the weather that we're experiencing today and what we'll get tomorrow. Today I also bought the deep mining license from Fletch, got a deed for the construction of a mine, which only set me back for about 250,000 dings and a ton of materials. But I'm sure it will be all worth it in the end. I decided to place it behind Jean's shop because I don't want it in the middle of the town, but not too far away either. Even more good news, my chicken is completely grown up and is laying eggs every day, so that's awesome. Theodore also let me buy some pumpkins from him as a favor to him, so I was able to craft my very first scarecrow. However, it does appear that my fence does seem to be doing the job. The completionist inside me actually forced me to buy a tape measurer from John. I have no idea when I'm actually ever going to use this. But seriously, how many types of tools are there in this game? Now, at some point while I was collecting the materials for the construction of the mine, I realized that I was heading into the mines pretty soon and had no decent weapons to fight with. In order to be able to craft better weapons, I needed the next tier of the hunting license, and to unlock that, I had to get my hunting skill up. So I made myself a spear and a wooden bat and basically killed every animal that I could find. I was actually doing pretty well until I was fighting this dingo without paying attention to my health. Day 15, I wake up in my tent, no idea how I got there and why half of my money was missing. Great. As a mission from the notice board, I took a picture from John for Fletch. Maybe she has a crush on John? I don't know. The gazebo build was completed and looks cool, but only makes me realize even more that I might need to get started on making this town a little bit better looking. Irwin is back, so I did him a favor. Seriously, join my cult already. I also bought an additional animal feeder, so I no longer need to feed my chook every single day. Because I didn't have enough permit points to buy the new hunting license, I went collecting shells to complete a milestone for it. And while I was at it, I collected even more old treasure for Franklin when he comes around again. In the evening, I cooked a lot of meat on a stick to prepare for my descent into the mines. Day 16 was actually quite anticlimactic as I decided to prepare even more for the deep mines. I crafted my new weapons, improved mining picks, and even more food. On top of my daily milestones and doing favors for the villagers as always, I also tried to make my new mining elevator fit into the landscape by pushing dirt around it. On day 17, it was D-Day. Deep Mining Day, that is. Irwin stopped by and I asked if I could do him a favor because I really want him to move to the island, but he asked for a butterfly that was definitely going to take me all day to find. So I just shook my head at him them and I descended into the mines. Now, the mines are exactly what you expect. Dark, full of hostile animals and tons of rocks to mine. I was so glad I bought a torch from John because otherwise I would have been lost. I found a car wreck that I was able to break down for some old treasure, though it wasn't really worth the trouble. The biggest issue was wildlife. The hostile bats are plentiful and annoying to kill, but it's the bush devil that is actually just the worst. Not only can they spit fireballs and have tons of health and pack quite a punch, but you just can't see them in the dark and you just often end up swinging your bat at nothing. The bioluminescent crocs are easier to hit though, but they also have an extra defense mechanism that creates this area of poison around them. Besides that, I found this bat statue that I have no idea what to do with, this locked room for which I assume I need the old keys that I found while looking for old treasure, and a huge red ruby. Once it was evening, I went back up and started smelting. This haul should go a long way for now, but I can't wait to go back. On day 18, I completed a shipping request for John from the notice board. Now I try to check this every day as the rewards are decent every time. I bought the brewing license from Fletch as my trip to the mines actually made me realize that cooked bush limes only take you so far and real cooked food has some powerful buffs. I sold my ruby to John for 66,000 dings, which is not bad. And I also started making it a point to just go into John's store every day for now to buy a mining pick, because you can only buy one once a day and you've got no way to craft one of your own, but you can only upgrade it. I also congratulated Theodore on his birthday and crafted my very first bridge. While I was running around for my daily tasks, I heard someone whistle. It took me a while to find out who whistled at me, and I found a man with a bucket on his head called Ted Sally. I assume it's a reference to Ned Kelly, an Australian bushranger who actually wore armor during his shootouts with the police. But either way, Ted Sally on the other hand can craft me powerful weapons in return for some materials that I haven't found yet. Unfortunately, he doesn't want to be tied down to a place and he will never move to my town. Guess I will have to find him in the middle of the forest by accident every time. After that encounter, I started placing down tiles that give me a sense of how the streets in my town will run and build from there. On day 19, Franklin returned and I really wanted to get something from him, but unfortunately I was missing a lot of required licenses. Now at this point, the lack of permit points are really halting my progress and completing milestones is becoming even more a priority. So instead of getting the jackhammer that I really wanted, I ordered a repair table from him. Essentially, if I buy a repair kit from Franklin for 30,000 dings, I can repair all the tools in my inventory instantly at his repair table. By the way, Franklin needs more people skills. Also today, for the very first time, I was able to harvest my green beans, which took them long enough. I really wanted to head into the mines today, but I decided to only go down to the mines on days when there aren't any visitors. That way I can focus on earning their friendship so they'll move to my town as quickly as possible. I'd really like to have all the villagers living here before the 100 days are up. So on day 20 I headed into the mines, but before I did I went to Fletch's tent and deposited all my money in order to pay off the current loan. That way if I faint in the mines I won't lose any money. Better be safe than sorry. My adventure in the mines actually went rather smooth. I found a few barrels that had barely any loot in them, tons of ores and 2 hidden rooms with treasure chests in them. As I figured last time I came down, you actually need to use an item called old keys to open up the gates. The treasure chest inside contained a few iron and copper bars, a guitar, a doggo collar, an iron pickaxe and some paints that I had no idea what to do with. Maybe I can paint some furniture or my house with them. I also found a fossil while destroying the stone walls. I should be able to sell this to John later on. Once it was evening I went back up and headed to bed. On day 21 I had a new visitor called Clover, but first I headed to Fletch and got myself the last tier of the hunting license, meaning now I could make myself iron weapons. By the time I was meeting Clover, the girl who will sell us new clothes, my daughter came to sit by my side again and helped me choose a new outfit. This is becoming a new thing. Luckily I had sold my fossil to John for 75,000 dings or I would have been bankrupt after this visit to Clover. I also showed my daughter all the bugs and fish I had collected so far in the museum and started to organize my town a little bit. I had started to place storage chests all around my camp. Like a crate for cooking supplies next to my cooking station, a crate next to my crops with my hoe and watering can in it, and of course this treasure chest that I got from the mines in front of the entrance containing my old keys, food, weapons and more. At this point I was also starting really thinking about the layout of my city and how I was going to set everything up, how the streets were going to go, how this farm would look and so on. My daughter also made me craft and place down these bioluminescent flooring, which looks cool but definitely is not staying here. On a side note, she wasn't impressed with my rocking skills either. The next day I finally crafted the next tier of weapons, including a bat on fire and an iron spear. Now, there was a mission on the notice board to kill an alpha bush devil. So essentially these alphas are the boss version of the animals we've already encountered. This one had the additional ability to make fireballs rain from the sky. I have to admit, fighting these guys in a game that resembles Animal Crossing just makes me smile. I actually found him pretty doable, but that's probably just because of the new iron spear I was using. He dropped an alpha eye, which was a material that I needed from old Buckethead's weapons. I finally got to harvest my fruit orchard, which seemed to take forever to grow. I worked a little bit more on my roads, just moving dirt out of the way, and of course my wheelbarrow was proving to be quite invaluable at this time. And of course the dirt that I didn't need I was just patting against the hill between John's shop and the gazebo. I have this plan for making this hill a starting point for a waterfall, but that's not for right now just yet. I'm definitely going to be shuffling dirt around for a few more days. On day 23, Clover stopped by again. Now my daughter had decided that my character didn't need a makeover just yet, so I just did Clover a favor. By the way, completing missions from the notice board day after day had me doing some weird favors for Fletch and John, making me wonder if John had an admirer or a stalker. Because I had the camera in hand, I also made a few pictures of the wildlife and Clover to hang in the empty picture frames in the museum. For the rest of the day I just did my usual daily tasks like the daily milestones, favors for the villagers, and shuffled even more dirt around. Not only clearing the soon-to-be streets, but also create a bit more of a working space around my house. At this point I'm also crafting a gazillion of stone and cement pads. On day 24 I hung the pictures I took in the museum. National Geographic won't be calling me anytime soon, but I think it looks cool. I made 4 wooden crates for John so he can probably sell it for huge profit in South City. And after that, you guessed it, I shuffled dirt around and placed pads down. I also built some stairs and fencing around my house and made a second bridge to connect my streets to the other side of the river. I couldn't build that second bridge soon enough because I was just tired of dodging the crocs while swimming. On day 25, Erwin was visiting again, but I didn't buy anything as I had set my mind on something else for now. I got a building license from Fletch that will allow me to build windmills that can actually make my furnaces, barbecues, grain mills and stone grinders work even faster. I was way too enthusiastic and made 2 as I thought it would only power up machines who stand right next to it. However, while I was writing my script and detailing what I did on day 25, I read on the wiki that a windmill actually powers everything in a radius of 26 tiles around it. So I'm definitely going to be placing the second windmill somewhere else, maybe to give me the option to split up my working area just as a decoration piece, but I will just leave them right here for now. Oh, and if you're wondering, the weird relationship between John and Fletch is still going on, but this time from the other side. I took this picture of Fletch with her face in the dirt for John and he was actually quite happy with it. The next day I decided to finally upgrade my tent to a house. It will only cost me about 95,000 dinks and fairly common construction materials. After depositing them into the green bin, I headed down into the mines and once again it was the bad apocalypse. It was actually during this run that I actually started counting how many bats I kill every time I go down there. It actually ended up averaging around 40 bats. By the way, at this point in time I'm actually considering copper to be a much scarcer resource than iron. I don't find it nearly as much as I find iron or tin, but it's quite important as I needed to upgrade my tools from common to copper to iron. And these upgrades are quite important because my new weapons were quite useful during this run, especially the flaming bat, as you can just put the croc on fire and steer clear of it until the fire goes out or until it's dead. Unfortunately, the bush devil seems to be fire retardant. For those, you're better off with an iron spear. I also found 4 hidden rooms, of which 2 actually contained rubies that I can sell at John for a nice profit, and the other 2 rooms had chests with stuff like paint cans, 2 boogie boards and 1 hang glider that I'm super excited to try out. On day 27 I woke up in a slightly bigger house. It looks kinda bland on the outside in my opinion, but I'm sure we'll be able to change that somehow. Today we had Franklin visiting again. He just can't seem to stay away apparently. Today I ordered the charging station, which was basically in preparation for when I can finally buy some electric tools from him. There was also a mission on the notice board to deal with an alpha jackaroo who actually ended up being more of a challenge for me than the alpha bush devil I fought before. I quickly decided to just light him on fire with my flaming bat and steer clear until he's done cooking. I just can't explain how much of a game changer the flaming bat is. I mean, just look at me dealing with this nest of emus. Speaking about game changers, 30 seconds of flight with a hang glider and you wonder how you ever got around without it. On this day, John also gifted me the recycling bin. Basically, this can serve as a garbage can if you want to get rid of something, but every day you can actually also find some cool random items in it. Guess it's true what they say, another man's trash is now all mine and mine alone. In the days after, I found in it an iron ore, a type of fish I didn't have yet, and some cool furniture for my bedroom. For the remainder of the day, I reorganized my workstations and stored chests. I tried to make this walking dock next to the river, but I'm not sold on it just yet. And I also tried to move my chicken a little bit further away, but I didn't know how to actually pick it up. So I just made this hallway from the old coop to the new coop. And if he wakes up in the morning, I'm sure he'll move there on his own because, well, his food is there after all. On day 28, I tore down the old chicken coop and reorganized my storage chest a bit more. Fletch informed me that we can start building the bank, so I placed down the building area next to the museum right across from John's store. Now the 100,000 dings loan is doable, but I don't see myself depositing loads of cash in the bank just yet. Right now I'm never strapped for cash, but not swimming in it either. I either really need to spend more time in the deep mines finding rubies, fossils or amber chunks, or just find a better way to make some money. On day 29 summer was over, the counter for the day in the top left corner had changed to the number 1 once again. Now you don't really notice this much in game, the leaves are still hanging on the trees, they aren't brown either, but you do suddenly start seeing a lot of new bugs crawling and flying around. So let's just say Theodore had a very good day today. I bought a few more licenses to let me keep wombats and a trapping license so I can catch animals and sell them at the drop-off point. I'll be sure to try that out soon enough, but first I had to visit Rain. I'm sure you remember her, she's our visiting farming supplies vendor, and at this time I knew I was going to be buying tons of seeds from her because you never know when she'll be back. So I spent a small fortune on seeds but didn't have time to plant them just yet as I had to go collect a bug in order to win her favor. While looking for this bug and being distracted by all the new ones that Autumn brought with it, I heard a lightning strike crash really close to me, and at the point of impact I found this, a thunder egg. I had been wondering about these as I had seen some requests on notice boards for pictures of one. I think even John was asking for one right now. I ended up carrying the egg all the way to John's store, but I had to wait to sell it till the next day because it's always closed on a Sunday. In the meantime, I decided to take a ton of pictures of the egg so I could sell one to John right now and have some more in reserve for the future. Spoiler alert, no one ever asked again for a picture of a thunder egg. On day 30, the construction of the bank was complete and I was introduced to Milburn, a ray of sunshine all on his own. I do think I will be needing a bit of his services in the future, as you can not only get interest on the deposited money in your account, but you can also exchange it for permit points. Now 500 dinks for 1 permit point is a bit steep right now, but I'm sure later on I will be doing it non-stop. By the way, if you're wondering, I sold my thunder egg for almost 80,000 dinks. Today I also planted my bottle brush orchard, from which I will need the red wattle flowers to brew some tea that can heal you in a pinch. Invaluable when dealing with alphas or just fighting in the deep mines. Later today I even unlocked the next tier of brewing license because I was just curious what was next. Got this detective hat from John, found out that my green bean crops had actually dried out, but I do remember the seeds mentioning that they weren't suited for autumn, so that's probably the reason. After dealing with that loss, I crafted brewing kegs, which works differently than I thought. Apparently I need to brew the yellow or red wattle flowers first in billy kits and then place the wattle tea in the kegs to get wattle brew. Now the entire process takes about 2 in-game days, which doesn't really immediately scream money making machine. Anyhow, I still decided to expand the brewing operation to 5 billy kits and 5 kegs in total. On day 31 I donated even more bugs to Theodore's museum. I expect you noticed that I always say bugs, never fish, because I just really don't like the fish in this game or any other for that. But I probably should still start doing it more because you get 100 permit points for every new fish. But on a bright note, I finally convinced Franklin to stay here, so with a jump in my step I headed to Fletch, paid off my loan for the bank, got a deed to build Franklin's house, and I placed a building site between the bank and a gazebo looking event hall. While collecting the materials for the construction site, I investigated, or rather looted, this fallen satellite for parts, and I also found this shiny rock that contained an opal, which is a rather rare resource at this point, but today was just a great day because we have a new villager coming to town. On day 32 I spent the entire day from 9 AM to almost midnight in the deep mines, found quite a few hidden rooms, so much that I actually need to start finding some old keys again. I didn't find anything special of items, but I just did get a lot of ores to smelt down, 2 rubies that are going to be worth about 150,000 dinks, and a deep fish. It kinda looks like an anglerfish, which makes sense because it lives in the dark. The next day, the construction of Franklin's house is complete. Now, it looks very cool, but I will most likely just move it because it just looks very out of place next to the big brick built bank and museum. I didn't get anything from Franklin as I'm running quite low on funds, nor do I have the required licenses for the machinery he offers, but I'm working on something, so stay tuned. On a bright note, however, Fletch informed me that we now finally have reached the requirement for the full-fledged town hall and that for once I don't need to pay for it. Maybe she's not just another Tom Nook. I even got this cool golden statue to commemorate his achievement, but I might need to give it a better spot later on. And on top of this momentous occasion, Erwin also informed me that he's moving here. Unfortunately, I can't place down the deed for his shop just yet as I'm still paying off the loan for Franklin's lab, but I've got a plan on fixing my money troubles tomorrow. On day 34 I had a plan. A few days ago I actually unlocked the second tier of the trapping license, meaning that I could trap animals and place them into a drop-off point. In return for my efforts I would get paid depending on how dangerous the animals were. Unfortunately, with emus, bush devils and such, I would first have to weaken them before I would be able to catch them with my trap. Kinda works a lot like Pokemon now that I think of it. But there is a workaround. If you can actually get the caged animal to the drop-off point before it escapes, it gets launched into the sky and I still get paid. So what I wanted to try out is just placing down a drop-off point near a lot of nests of bush devils and emus, place down a cage right next to it, lure them right into it, and it worked like a charm. But it's still quite dangerous as I got a little cocky and died for the second time on day 34. But just emptying my mailbox on day 35 lifted my spirits instantly. Essentially, by sending off every day 8 of these animals off to wherever they go, I get almost 90,000 things every day. My money problems aren't completely over, but this daily amount is going to go a long way for now. I immediately headed to Fletch and paid off my loan for Franklin's lab and got a deed for Erwin's store. I placed it down behind my house right next to the coop for my chook Binky, as I really wanted the store to be surrounded by all my animals. The visitor of the day was Sheila, who seems to be some type of chef. Getting this one to my island is probably going to be tougher, as all she ever asks for are dishes that need loads of ingredients. Then I collected the building materials for Erwin's shop and got some grass seeds while I was at it. I really want this space for my animals to be as lush as possible. I also got this purple rug for my house from the recycling bin. It's not my style, but it's hard to argue with free stuff. On day 36, I fought probably the toughest alpha beast so far. This alpha croc can do some type of earthquake attack which hits like a truck. Honestly, I just wanted to light him on fire and steer clear as much as possible, but then I realized that it's raining and that wouldn't work. So I had to do it the hard way with my spear, and I got a few times really close to dying. On day 37, Clover was visiting again. She didn't really have anything special for sale. I was rather more interested in Erwin's barn looking shop, but apparently he's closed on Mondays. I get that, who likes Mondays after all? I tried to buy a motorcycle from Franklin, but for that I need a license as well. I almost bought a required license for water vehicles out of frustration, but then I decided to save my permit points in order to hold bleeps. I think it's like an Australian sheep or something. I don't know. At least today was the very first day that I felt comfortable enough to deposit money in the bank, because I finally had some extra. After that I was way too excited to start keeping more kinds of animals, so I started terraforming the small piece of land behind my house and Erwin's barn and just starting building the required stalls. On day 38, I jumped out of bed, headed to Erwin's shop, ready to... Nope, he doesn't open before 10 AM. Guess I'll go catch some emus first. But you'd think at this point I'd be a pro at herding them into the traps, but nope, I'm still running around quite scared that I will have to tell you the story of how I died at the hand of emus once again. Or should it be feet? So I headed to Fletch, got the last animal husbandry license, bought myself a pleep puggle. So I think they expect me to daily shear this platypus for wool. Is that a real thing? I also crafted myself a silo that should automatically fill the feeding bowls of Gabriella, that's how I called it pleep, and Bink my chook. Filling the silo looks a bit weird though. On day 39, I kinda screwed up, but first I need to talk about the new visitor. This is Sally, the hairdresser in Dinkum, hopefully one day the hairdresser of Binky Dinky Town. Naturally, I let my 5-year-old daughter choose a new hair color. I kinda was fearful that she was going to give my character a whiplash while she was flipping through the options. She ended up choosing this, what is this color? Blue? Maybe green? I'm so bad at this. If you thought my screw up was fighting another alpha croco, it wasn't. Lighting him on fire during the day with not a dark cloud in the sky worked excellent. My screw up was thinking that the silo I built yesterday wasn't filling the feeding bowls as intended because there was a fence between them. Before you know it, Gabriella and my new wombat Laurel were running around town freely. Now I was able to contain the wombat, but my dear old pleep was swimming around in the nearby river. I tried to catch it in an animal trap, but that didn't work, so I figured she would return to the fenced off area when she wanted to go to bed. The only problem with that was that I had to run right next to her as a bodyguard just to protect her from all types of animals. It only took me most of day 39, but everything ended quite well. To end on a positive note, I placed a doggo collar that I found in the deep mines around a dingo's neck, and now I have a dog. Now I just need to figure out how to give her a name. Day 40 was less spectacular than the day before. I finally ordered some machinery from Franklin, the compactor, which should make flattening the area around my town a lot easier. Guess we'll find out tomorrow. Oh, and while collecting wood for a little project, I found this beehive. I hoped it would contain a queen bee so I could craft a bee house, but it only contained 2 regular bees. Weirdly enough, they weren't even angry at me for destroying their home. The next day I received a compactor from Franklin, and I can't even describe how much fun it is to use this thing. Just look at me flattening areas in seconds, what I would normally spend more than 10 minutes on with a shovel and a wheelbarrow. It does drain stamina quite quickly, and the charging station makes some weird sounds, but I don't mind it as long as I never have to use the wheelbarrow again. This alpha kangaroo attacked me out of nowhere while I was innocently capturing emus and selling them for profit. Fortunately, my doggo was there to help me deal with it. Sheila was visiting again, and this time she wanted a quiche, for which you need flour and cheese. I really need to start planting my wheat, but first I need to do a little bit more flattening to suit my soul. Day 42, I got distracted by 2 missions on a notice board and asked for the same thing. Flakes, that you can only get by killing a shark. So I spent the entire day looking for one, and when I finally did find one, we had an epic battle. Meaning I poked him with my spear a few times, then he fled to the open sea where I couldn't hit him. I mean, at one point I was basically herding him, a huge shark, to the beach while swimming behind him in the water completely defenseless. I got him in the end, and while this was was all going on, I also got distracted for a second and look what I caught. The next day, on a Sunday out of all days, Julia stopped by. Now she's apparently Theodore's little sister and she organizes a competition that wants you to catch as many bugs as you can and you'll get more points the rarer the bug is. Fine by me. So I ran around till 4 PM like a madman, catching every bug that I could find, and the result was, well, just embarrassing. I ended up in 4th place and not even by a close call. The winner had like double the points that I had. In hindsight, I probably should have focused on catching rather rare bugs than just quantity, but even then I almost called for a recount when I heard the results. Day 44, I started my day as usual, meaning running around the collection point, being chased by a pack of emus, dropping traps when I can. Now, I should probably try to tackle this a bit smarter in the future. So I decided to clear the specific hill of all vegetation and craft myself a bunch more animal collection points. Now, the idea that I want to try tomorrow is creating some type of choke point where I lay my traps before angering them and can just lead them to it when I'm ready. So most of my day went into setting this up, but in the evening I also removed the wooden path that I made alongside the river edge before and used the space to make my animal pen quite a bit bigger. Today I also got this chicken mask thing that I will never show to my daughter or she's going to make me wear it for the remaining 56 days. And then it was day 45, or Emu Day as I like to call it. I headed to the hill to try the choke point idea out. So I placed my 3 collection points down, placed all my traps to the side of them. After that it's all just a matter of luring the animals into them, and now it's as safe as it can get. Now in hindsight I probably should have made it even more of a tunnel, but this will do for now. And if that already wasn't great in itself, our farming expert Rain told me that she finally wants to move to our town and I'm happy as a clam. That is just a super weird expression. I ended up placing down the deed for a shop down right across of Erwin's barn, where it will probably fit in very nicely with the crops growing in my farming field. Day 46 was just me setting up a few things. I ordered a quarry from Franklin, which should be a device that's going to give me daily access to random ores or old treasure. John wanted a few dozen apples for a mission on the notice board, so I gave those to him, got my reward and immediately spent that on a house customization kit. I changed my house into something that resembled a little bit less of a garden shed, or maybe even more. Spent some time placing decoration around Rain's building site. And since I was spending money, I also bought a new wombat from Erwin so I can get more milk on a daily basis. I should just get more animals in general so I can cook some better food and craft more expensive stuff. As I see it, all animals are basically worth keeping. The eggs from the chooks are great for cooking, wool from the plebes is going to be made into cloth, which is crafting material, and milk from wombats can be turned into cheese, so I guess they should all be worth the trouble. Just don't ask me how I milk wombats because you don't want to know. Day 47 was a mining day, not my most pleasant one, as I died from being put on fire by a bush devil with no nearby water to put it out. But luckily you respawn at the elevator when this happens and I didn't lose any money as I made it a point to deposit all of my pocket money in the bank before coming down. Even though I got my butt handed to me, it was a rather successful mining operation as I found tons of ores and a few hidden rooms. I also accidentally destroyed a ruby that I found and I got 3 ruby shards in return. Not sure what they are used for, but I'll figure it out. The next day involved a ton of smelting ores, giving me just enough resources to finally order a jackhammer from Franklin, and I just can't wait to try it out. I also bought a tool repair kit from Franklin. So up till now I actually wanted to save money and I kinda ended up with a really weird system with my tools. So whenever a tool's durability gets low, I place it into a chest and craft another one. Now that the chest with all the broken tools was full, it was the right time to use the tool repair kit, which costs about 30,000 things, but it still repairs every tool in your backpack. Not going to lie, this felt like starting with a clean slate all over again. Extremely satisfying to say the least. Day 49, Sheila visited again, and for the very first time I was able to cook up what she wanted, a fruit salad. Maybe there's a chance of her joining my town after all. After that I planted my pumpkins and that's it. My children wanted to see the museum again and I had to name almost every bug in there. It wasn't my most productive day. Day 50, the halfway point of the challenge, started off quite well. So I finally got to harvest my wheat, giving me access to flour for bread and all kinds of pastry that Sheila may want when she returns. I did a notice board mission that had me killing some sharks for flakes, built myself a boat so it would be easier to fish in open seas, and got ready for another mining expedition down below. On day 51, my daughter made me buy a ton of clothes from Clover, caught my daily emus, and descended into the deep mines. When I arrived there, I realized that I had forgotten my torch, but at least I had my flaming bat to light my way. At this point I was running low on old keys, so I just focused on mining the ores that I needed. I got plenty of chances to test out my newest addition to the arsenal, the jackhammer. It's without a doubt faster than my iron pickaxe and probably less stamina draining, nor does he run out of battery as quickly as a compactor that I use to flatten areas, so that's a bonus. Got myself 2 rubies to sell tomorrow to John and a bunch of ores to smelt. So on day 52 I actually decided to really take farming serious. I needed flour, sugar and other vegetables to make the advanced food, so getting a decent farm going is essential. But the only problem with that is that it can be incredibly frustrating at the start. You need to water every seed, which is extremely stamina draining. On top of that, you can't get better equipment like the improved water can or the irrigation system until you got the required licenses, which are locked behind your farming skill. This is nothing new, all the other skills work the same, but farming you can only get experience when you harvest your crops. So it all boils down to me needing a really big harvest, and for that reason I planted today an additional 100 wheat. Oh, this is going to be one hell of a time sink for the next few days. It's day 53, so let me just show you what my daily grind has been like day after day. I wake up and check my mailbox, getting the compensation I earned for selling the emus the day before. I pet all my animals so they feel loved enough to give me better animal products in return. I check the notice board and my villagers to see what they need. Then I fly to the emus with my hang glider and I lure the entire pack of 9 emus into my cages. I head back to town, often trying to complete a few daily milestones and favors for the town folks along the way. I collect the spoils of keeping all my animals, so meaning I collect the eggs, milk and wool. And today I was done by noon before I actually had to start watering all my crops, which took me about 4 in-game hours. Now, on the upside, I did buy today the fish book from Theodore, showing me which fish is in the area and for how much I can sell it. On top of that, if a fish's name is depicted with only question marks, the museum doesn't have one yet. I hope the same thing exists for bugs, because if it does, I will definitely win the bug competition the next time Julia passes by again. Day 54, I did my daily grind and went looking for old treasure, turned in a few fish at the museum, which the fish book made extremely easy to find. Not an extremely exciting day, but I did get a few old keys, which will be quite useful when I descend into the mines again. Day 55 wasn't a lot more interesting, however I did finally meet a new visitor called Melvin, the furniture guy. I bought a traffic cone from him because why not? I didn't buy the bed because I already have two and a sleeping bag in my house. Today I also decided to start buying quarries from Franklin. They seem to be a good investment as they can spawn every day a vein of ore or just old treasure, meaning that I won't always be forced to head down to the mines for iron ore or run all over the island for old treasure. The next day I got a little insane in the membrane and decided to plant even more crops to water. I had only planted wheat before, giving me access to flour, but I still need sugar, so I planted a sugarcane field. At least Franklin is helping me out with watering the crops, and also Theodore sold me the bug book, so I've got that going for me. On day 57, Sally the hairdresser was visiting, so I asked her to color my character's hair black. My daughter likes this dress, so I decided to just complete the Wednesday look. My quarry farm is going strong and I'm only planning to expand it even more if I have the resources for it. After my daily tasks, I mowed the grass around my town to get grass seeds and flowers, and I'd rather have some grass and trees to look at than all this cacti. Oh, and winter has arrived. I don't see any way how to visually notice the difference. I mean, it isn't snowing, the kangaroos aren't freezing over. Winter did bring a new variety of bugs and fishes, so every now and then I'm just heading out with the books in hand to find anything I haven't seen before. On day 58 I did notice one more effect of the winter. My pumpkin crops had gone bad, so I probably should pay more attention to the duration of a season and the growing times with certain crops. At least a part of my wheat crops are ready for harvesting, so hopefully I'll gain a few farming levels when I go to bed. While collecting hardwood from my tree farm, I got a few beehives which gave me some honey, a few bees and a queen bee. Now I need a queen bee to craft a bee house, but I'll most likely just give this first one to Theodore for the museum. Good news, my harvest granted me enough levels to get the first farming license. Now this grants me a better hoe, watering can and a compost bin that lets me make fertilizer, but it's the watering can that I'm happy about. It'll let me water 3 crops at the same time. A small upgrade that will make my daily grind a bit less, well, grindy. The remainder of my crops seem to be ready for harvest in the next few days, so I've got that to look forward to. For the rest of the day I looked for old treasure because I'm running out after constantly ordering quarries from Franklin. On day 60 I found a new way to deal with alpha kangaroos and just minimizing the risk involved. Just stand on a big rock and poke them with a spear. Had a huge harvest of wheat and planted more than 200 carrots and almost an additional 100 wheat. And in the evening I made myself 5 compost bin to turn poo into fertilizer. I mean, with all my animals and definitely even more wild beasts wandering around in my town, I won't be running out anytime soon. Day 61 was mostly a typical day of completing daily tasks, filling my machines, catching new bugs and fishes, digging up old treasure and harvesting fruit and wildflowers. Melvin, the furniture guy, was the visitor of the day, but I actually forgot to do him a favor and was annoyed when I realized that the next day. So on day 62 I wanted to do something completely different. After doing all my daily tasks, I headed with all my old treasure to 2 of the tele towers on the island. I had mapped all 4 of them out in the early days of my playthrough. They are spread out in each direction and all 4 of them are broken down. The only way to fix them is with a variety of old treasure pieces, gear, screen board and whatnot. Only after fixing one I actually realized that these things are teleporters. You can only teleport to one while standing on another, but if Franklin can make me one for my town, that would save me a lot of traveling time. On day 63, Clover the fashion expert was visiting and I did her another favor, but it wasn't until the evening that she told me the happy news that she wants to move to my island. I think at this point we only still need to get Sally the hairdresser, Melvin the furniture guy and Sheila the chef to make the right decision and move here permanently. I fixed the other two teletowers, but it took me a bit longer as I had to collect the required old treasure. And I will need a lot more old treasure as I finally decided to splurge and buy a license from Fletch to drive a motorcycle. I will have to wait till Monday before I can ask Franklin to craft me one, but I'm super excited. The next day was an extremely good day. My farming skill had risen enough to unlock better tools, but also the irrigation license, meaning that I can now craft basic sprinklers. I know I was complaining a few days ago about how watering my crops is stamina draining, but even so I decided to not drop everything and rearrange my farm to set up the sprinklers right away. Right now, as watering with the iron watering can is very doable, my copper reserves are running extremely low and I want to figure out the best layout for my sprinklers before setting this up. After buying the licenses, I placed down the deed for the new clothing store right next to John, and I will probably rearrange all buildings later on, but for now it's fine. Today I also ran into Ted Sally. You remember him, our bucket-wearing wandering weapon vendor that I just can't convince to place down roots. I bought the bat zapper, which is some kind of lantern that can fry bats instantly, and a battle shovel who should make dealing with threats in the deep mines a lot easier. On day 65 I had to try out the bat zapper and the battle shovel in the deep mines. There's never a shortage of bush devils and bats down there, so instead of just letting them ruin my day, I used them for target practice. The bat zapper is a game changer. I know I call almost every new tool that, but it really is. It just instantly kills swarms of bats, and in a bad situation you can use it to stun bigger monsters. However, it does feel as if the battery life is ridiculously short and you don't want it to run out, because whenever that happens with an electric tool, it'll break and I would be left in the dark. The battle shovel is also quite the upgrade, because it hits hard and it also has the chance to stun the nasty things hidden in the dark. So in short, I'm happy with both of my purchases. Now, while I was down there, I kinda got distracted with all the ore that I was digging up and the few locked rooms that I ran into because I stayed way too long in the deep mines. I ended up having to water my crops when it was past late and I was tired the whole time. Maybe I should prioritize those sprinklers after all. On day 66 I was still a little bit drowsy from my late night farming. I ordered a motorcycle from Franklin, but before I could, he also mentioned something about the ability to build a telepad that will let me teleport to the tele towers that I repaired before. I don't know, he just said tele a lot. I'll figure it out tomorrow. Today my mind was just set on having a very simple day containing the smelting of ore, doing milestones and field work. Day 67 was a good day. My motorcycle arrived in the mail and I couldn't help looking for excuses to use it as much as I could. Luckily Theodore and Erwin asked me to hunt 2 alpha crocs, so of course I got there with the motorcycle. My tactic with any alpha is the same at this point. Put them on fire and stay away. By the way, did you know that you can actually place cages on top of motorcycles so you can actually scare the poor animals before selling them for a profit? The next day I had quite a decent harvest, so I celebrated by just ordering a jet ski from Franklin. After yesterday I have a need for cool machinery. I'm probably also in need for speed. Now, day 68 was an important one because the end of the 100 days was creeping up on me and I wanted this town to be as perfect as possible by then. So I started to map out how I would like everything to look by then. I decided to start with my own farm first. Up to this point I was working with a very small area that looked huge when I started, but as I advanced in the game, the area that I cut out for myself became quite suffocating. So I decided that I was going to move it all, at least eventually. First I just wanted to decide where my house was going to be, where the production machines would be, where the crops would be growing and how it would all be connected to the town. For today I just started off with flattening the area behind the visitor tent. I also removed my hardwood tree farm that I had going there and started mapping out with fence posts where the self-watering farm would be. Finally I had an excuse to use the measuring tool. Day 69. Nice. I had big plans, but after doing my daily tasks and then collecting the construction materials for the telepad, well, all that took up most of my day. You remember the telepad, the teleporter that will let me teleport to other teletowers around the island. I'll show you how it works when the construction is complete in a few days. Now I do have to admit I may have spent a little bit of time cruising around on the jet ski. Oh, and my daughter decided that Wednesday isn't a great look for us, so she made me change our character's hair to purple. Day 70 I started on the mass production of the sprinklers, which just tore through my copper bars like nothing. So today had to be a deep mining day. At this point I hardly pay any attention to everything that's trying to eat me and just focus on getting the tin, copper and iron that I need. I did find a mining helm and now I don't know how I ever functioned without it. I no longer need to constantly switch between my lantern and my weapon or drill. It's just a very simple item, but what a game changer. The next day I tried to hold back my tears as I destroyed my wallflower bushes. Now, these flowers are so important to brew drinks that restore energy and health, but they need to move for my self-watering farm. I will definitely plant them again soon enough. I placed my flooring to divide the growing fields and a fence around it to keep the wildlife away, and in the evening I almost forgot to do a favor for a visitor, Melvin, the furniture guy. He wanted a blue fish, so I just used the finished telepad and teleported to the beach to catch one of those bad boys. I just wish that I could move the teletowers to more useful locations like my emu trap farm, but this is better than nothing. Day 72 was a Monday, so I finally got to sell the fossil and ruby that I found during my latest mining expedition. That netted me a little over 150,000 dings, but I immediately invested a part of that dings into the purchase of another mining pass. Yes, today was also a deep mining day. These sprinklers are way too expensive to craft. On day 73 I finally had enough permit points to unlock the advanced sprinklers, the best version. I crafted all that I could and placed them down in the new farm. Even though I still needed 5 more sprinklers to finish it, I just started planting crops in the finished growing fields just to see if everything works. Oh, and Sheila was happy with my meat on a stick. Day 74 is going to be a little bit different because there was something that I definitely wanted, if not needed, to do in these 100 days. In the latest update, called the Blooming Spring update, the developer added another level to the deep mines called the undergrowth. Now to get there you just need to pop 4 ruby shards in this console, get the usual mining pass from John and head down. It took me a second to figure out what the ruby shards are for. Remember when I said I was getting really comfortable in the deep mines? Well, I don't see that happening immediately in the undergrowth. You've got reptiles that can poison you, you have Venus flytrap looking plants that hit like a truck, and grubs that attack in packs of a dozen. You don't really get a moment of rest in this place, but at least it all happens in a cool looking area. It has tons of greenery, these mossy brick laid flooring, these cool looking stone lanterns and emeralds, which will most likely serve the same purpose as rubies in the next update. And it's apparently also the only place that you can get marble, which I discovered entirely by accident. Unfortunately not a lot of ore compared to the regular deep mines, but I think you'd only go down there for the locked rooms. And yeah, the undergrowth has these as well. The only problem is they are swarming with enemies, you need even more old keys to open up all the rooms. I did get a new type of ore called zirconium from one chest, which I have no idea what to do with. At least not yet. I felt a sense of relief when I actually made it out of the undergrowth alive. On day 75 it was raining and I had seen at this point multiple times a loading screen saying that there would be a shady visitor on rainy days. I didn't really know where to look until I checked the map. Now there was this question mark in the middle of the Northern Sea that had to be it. Once I got there I found this boat that is owned by a rather sleazy shopkeeper called Jimmy. Now while I was trying to not stare at the worst comb over ever, he told me about how he buys everything at double the price, but only in stacks of 50 or more. Now that would have sounded great if I had any profitable items in those quantities. He sells a variety of things like golden statues, a boombox, a red hang glider and a pocket watch that can advance time, but basically everything around here costs less than a kidney on the black market, so it's fair to say that I didn't buy anything. After an extremely long jet ski ride back, I was hungry for some advancements in this 100-day challenge. I started off with just asking Fletch to move my house. I decided to place it at the entrance of my self-watering farm, and right next to it I built a small dock to park my rowboat and the jet ski. After that I flattened the area even more, removed my fruit trees and measured where the animal pens would go. Once it was past my bedtime I went to sleep in my sleeping bag in the middle of the street. Day 76 I finished the fencing on the animal pens and started on a processing area right across of them. This area was going to hold all my machines to turn the animal and farm products into refined resources like clothes, cheeses, animal food, brews, fertilizers and so on. And preferably machines that I only have to fill once a day. After that I tried to move my animals to the new area by using a whistle that Erwin sold to me, but they didn't care. That didn't stop me from installing their coops, feeding bowls and silos filled with animal food in the new fenced off areas. I may have been acting a little bit indifferent, but I was low-key hoping that they would come here all on their own. For this huge undertaking that I started, I was going to need a lot of wood, so I ordered a chainsaw from Franklin, but first he told me he was going to be able to craft me something amazing if I brought him 10 zirconium ores. You know zirconium, the new ore that I found in the undergrowth. But sorry Franklin, I'm a man on a mission and all I care about now is transforming this town into something amazing. I mean, it's day 76 and if I now decided to just go down to the undergrowth one day after the other trying to get those 10 zirconium ores, I may end up not completing either of those goals. The next day I woke up and started thinking about how great it would be to have Franklin as a neighbor. So I placed a fence around a huge open area next to my house, went to Fletch and asked her to move Franklin's house right in the middle of it. And here comes my bright idea. I was going to give him a front yard and a backyard. The front yard would just be a typical garden area, but in the back I was going to be placing all my furnaces, stone grinders, charging stations, the telepad and more. These are all the types of machines that a mad scientist like Franklin would be playing around with, so it would make sense for him to have like a work area back there. and for me to have access to it. The small area between our houses was going to hold a few of my storage chests and crafting benches. Of course, I realized that this is way smaller than what I had before, but by splitting up my production areas, I will probably end up with more space in total than before. When that was done, I planted my wildflower bushes on the furthest end of the farm, expanded the production areas a bit more, and placed even more machines down. And I also made the tough decision to sell all my animals and start all over, as I had no clue how I would ever get them back to their new pens. Day 78, Franklin's house is looking great at its new spot. Next up, the telepath was going to move to his backyard as well. Now that I have a layout of the base figured out, it was time to plant a bunch of pine trees. Okay, maybe I don't really have everything figured out just yet. My cooking area is a mess. For the moment, everything cooking related is right next to the town hall across from Franklin for now. My plan at this point is to combine my cooking station with Sheila's restaurant, like I did with Franklin's backyard, but first she needs to decide to move here. Day 79, I was mostly getting a few more things done. I did Sally a favor and she gifted me this penguin hat, which I wore for the entire day. Planted a few more decoration trees, started a new fruit tree orchard right next to my wildflower bushes, moved all my materials to the new storage chest and started working on the new town square. So my old house was a tile higher than the rest of the town, completely decorated with stone bricks and fences, and I figured this would be a decent location to place the museum and the bank. All the other buildings are made from wood or tin sheeting, but these two specific buildings look like they're built from massive stone bricks and they just didn't fit among the others. If I make them part of the town square, they may fit in more with the big picture than if I leave them among the others. To make this possible, Erwin's barn had to be moved, so I placed him rather close to my animals. I was doubting this decision because I didn't really want him to be that far away from the other villagers, but then on the other hand, his store fits in perfect with the farming area that I want to create. On top of that, I like how you now have to walk past all the animals to get to his shop. Then I started working on dismantling the old animal housing, but in order to make this new area part of the town square, I also needed to raise the entire area, and I really didn't want to do that by hand. So I headed to Franklin, who has a solution for everything, and I ordered the dirt printer, a machine that's going to be costing me 300,000 dinks. The next day I took the dirt printer for a spin and raised about half of the area that I wanted to add to the town square. This thing's battery is running on fumes before you know it. I asked Fletch to also move the museum to where my furnaces used to be and crafted the last 5 advanced sprinklers that I needed for my farm. In the evening I went to collect grass seeds because I really want this place to look as lush as possible. I think I'm going to be spending a lot of evenings collecting grass seeds. On day 81 I started the day off with buying 2 chickens and a wombat. I'm aiming to have 3 chickens, 3 plebes and 3 wombats by the end of the 100 days. I would rather have a lot more animals, but while handling this big project I don't really want to add to my daily tasks. After that I finished the flooring for the town square, but it kind of ended up feeling a little bit way too boring, so to spruce it up I moved the stairs, placed 2 kangaroo statues to each side of the museum, probably planted way too many trees to hide away the ugly backside of these buildings, created a small offshoot near the water which features a statue of a crocodile. I also created this elevated area to display some flowers and tried to creating a simple pattern of cement blocks to just break up the stone brick flooring. On day 82 I moved the gazebo looking bandstand to the town square next to the bank, bought a shook and a plebe, hoed the farm and planted 384 sugar canes, but during the planting I missed one spot and it took me forever to find the empty spot. During the evening chopped down palm trees and crafted some benches to decorate around the town. I also fenced off the orchard area as I keep finding wildlife wandering around in my farm, though at this point I think I may need to learn to live with it. The next day I ordered a lawnmower from Franklin as collecting grass seeds is becoming quite a time sink. After handing Sheila the food she wanted, I moved the town hall to a corner location and I'm planning to give Fletch a yard not unlike the one that Franklin has. However, it will most likely feature a lot less of my junk in the backyard. That evening I also started working on the park area. I started off with creating a branch of the main river that my town is located at. Now the compactor made this a breeze and then I created a waterfall using some water beds, which are a new craftable item that was introduced in the latest update. I placed some of the mossy brick flooring that I found in the undergrowth along the edge. It kinda makes sense in theory for this area, but I'm still on the fence about it. While I was doing it, I did discover that laying a pad on the top part of the dirt will also make all the blocks below it look the same, so essentially I could make walls this way if I wanted to. I might have to keep that in mind for future projects. On day 84 I fenced off Fletch's yard and her neighbor, whoever that may be in the near future. Not sure yet. Moved the visitor side to the park area because whoever is visiting always shows up in a tent, so it should fit in the park perfectly. Took the lawnmower for a test drive, but definitely not a game changer. Definitely not. All vehicles in this game have a huge turn radius and the lawnmower is no difference. I did get a milestone for mowing the lawn, so I might use it a few more times to gain permit points, but you're better off using the scythe or the chainsaw in my opinion. After that, I planted 50 of these black wood trees, placed a stone brick bridge in the park and flattened the area behind it because it just looks like a great spot for Rain's greenhouse. On day 85, the visitor's tent was no longer blocking my driveway. I moved John's store to the empty vacant spot right next to the town hall, collected my tools and headed down into the mines. Didn't hit any locked rooms as I was running low on keys, but got plenty of ores. And it was evening by the time that I came up, so I just trapped a few emus, smelted the ores into bars and went to bed. The next day, I sold 2 of the emu eggs to John for no other reason than unlocking a milestone for permit points. It might also be some type of subconscious revenge for everything they put me through in the past. Moved Rain's greenhouse to the first point of the park area, past the visitor stand. It was already noon when I realized that spring had arrived, so most of the day I was just running around with my bug and fish books open to just catch every new critter to fill the museum. As long as Theodore offers 100 permit points for every bug or fish he doesn't have yet, I'll happily help him out. I spent the evening planting more trees in the park area, collecting grass seeds with a lawnmower and a chainsaw. The chainsaw might be a little bit overkill, but it's just so much faster. And if you were wondering, you can't kill crocs with jackhammers, but you can kill them with chainsaws. But I wouldn't advise it though. On day 87 I moved the clothing store to its final location, but this did leave a huge open space across the street of the town hall. But on the bright side, I did discover after a deposit in the bank that you get 1,000 permit points for each million in your account, which is awesome. Most of the day was just all about planting bushes, grass and flowers in the people's their yards, in my driveway and in the park area. I love how these glow buttons from the undergrowth look during the night. Day 88 was a brand new day inside the game and outside of it. During my downtime, or let's just call it my day job, I was reading the Dinkum wiki and found a loophole. So I figured out that according to the Dinkum wiki, you can buy bush limes from John for 180 dinks. Feed 10 of those to a billy can kit and transform them into lime jam, which sells for 3,100 dinks. So essentially by buying bush limes from John at a retail price and processing them, I can make about 40% profit, and that sounds really good. Maybe a bit too good. So on day 88 I planted wattle bushes, ordered a tractor from Franklin for $500,000, gave some hearty stew to Sheila and made a buttload of billy can kits for my get rich quick scheme. On day 89 I was reenacting Tokyo Drift with my tractor. Unfortunately I can only harvest with it until I cough up like 10,000 permit points for the tilting and planting attachments for the tractor. But this is fun for now. Went to Melvin to empty my bank account and bought like more than 2,300 bush limes from John to feed my army of billy can kits. Placed my crab pots in the nearby river, fed it meat, and let's see what we'll find in there tomorrow. But the rest of the day was just spent in the deep mines because all those billy can kits weren't cheap to craft, and I rearranged the brewing production area in the evening to make it user friendlier. But just look at this. The next day I emptied my crab pots and got some jelly from jellyfish, I suppose, a white jabby and 3 old keys. If I knew I would get old keys from crab pots, I would have unlocked them ages ago. I fed my billy can kits even more bush limes, went to John to sell some of the lime jam already, and John's offered a little over 700,000 dinks. That seems a little light, John. So I decided to hold off on selling them for a minute. Maybe there's a larger quantity of bush limes processing than I thought. So I just went looking with my bug book in hand for a painted lady butterfly for Sally the hairdresser. Took me most of the day but found 2 of them. One for Sally and one for the museum. Collected a bunch of lime jam from my billy can kits and sold them to John for 1,000,000 dinks. Something isn't right. Now obviously I went to bed with a very bad feeling the night before. So in the morning of day 91 I decided to head to John and check the buying and selling prices because the math isn't adding up. But first I painted my tractor and motorcycle hot rod red because John doesn't open up before 8 AM. So John wants to buy my lime jam for 3,255 dinks. That's great. But he actually sells the bush limes for 540 dinks each. So essentially I am buying 10 bush limes for 5,400 and selling the jam for 3,255 dinks. I'm never going to financially recover from this. Okay, not really. I've actually also made a bunch of jams with fruit from my orchard, so I'm back at 1.2 million already. Let's not dwell on it and let's just try to find a better moneymaker. Now an obvious one was going to be the brewing of wattle brew. So essentially you harvest wattle flowers from the bushes, brew them in a billy can kit and then place that tea into a keg for 2 days, sell the wattle brew for a little over 5,000 dinks. But to do this successfully I will need to expand my wattle bushes orchard by quite a bit. That same day I also bought a wombat, so I'm back at having 3 animals of each kind at my farm. I planted a bunch more trees and grass, but at the same time while I was doing this I just noticed this huge barren area behind John's store, so I decided to make it part of the park and created a small pond. Now I just hope there won't be any croc spawning in there. Day 92 was Sunday, so I just did Sheila a favor and gave her a hearty stew before heading into the deep mines. But this time I have a few new things to report. Now, I found one of those bat statues again, remember it from day 17? Well, if you feed it 20 bat wings, which are an extremely rare drop, you can actually get a hang glider in the shape of bat wings. Just imagine being a villager walking the streets during the night and seeing something with this massive bat-shaped wingspan coming your way. I'm Batman. This is without a doubt my favorite find in the deep mines, at least until I checked the next locked room because I found in the chest a moo saddle. Save a horse, ride a moo. I'm trying this out tomorrow. I don't care what other priorities I have, tomorrow I'm riding a moo. You already know what I did on day 93, but before I went looking for a moo to ride, I decided to visit John. I sold 2 hang gliders that I found in chests in the deep mines, and apparently a hang glider sells for 440,000 dings each. So that was a nice surprise. Now I'm back at more than 2 million things, so that's not bad. Also today I figured out that I don't need to pet every single animal individually, but that I can just serenade them with my guitar. Day 93 and I'm still discovering new things in this game. Speaking of which, I learned the hard way that you can't put a saddle on just any mew. Nope, not these guys. Nope. Found one of the friendly ones and then I just rode him while looking for yellow wattle flowers. Now, do all Australians travel like this? Now, in this game, riding on this animal or just driving a motorcycle or tractor, it basically works all the same. You just can't make a quick turn if your life depended on it. It's fun nonetheless, but I still prefer my hang glider. So I parked my emu with my chickens before continuing my search for wild bushes. Maybe I will find a huge egg in the morning. On day 94 I harvested my sugarcane with the tractor. Now if Fletch actually saw my driving, she probably wouldn't let me keep my license. I bought a bunch of seeds for wheat from rain and planted that, though I don't think we'll be able to squeeze in another harvest before the 100 days are over. I planted 130 wattle bushes. I tried to be lazy and used the compactor and dirt printer, but I ended up switching to the good old-fashioned shovel as it's just a lot quicker. Once that was done, I chopped an entire palm tree forest because I want to have more kegs to craft my wattle brew. I also upgraded my grain milk production because grinding 386 sugar canes into sugar takes quite a while. On day 95 I was getting stressed out. I want to have this fulfilling end to my 100 days of Dinkum, but there's still so much to do, yet so little time. I finished the flooring of the brewing area, sold my wattle brews for 350,000 dings to John. Now if I had more time I would probably keep them until Como over Jimmy stops by again, because I think he said he would pay double, but he only shows up during rainy days, and Franklin's weather vane just keeps telling me that it'll be sunny the next day. I did 2 notice board missions for John, went to Fletch to upgrade my house and also asked her to build a guest house for if I ever have any friends visiting my island. Not sure where I'm going to end up placing the guest house, but I'll figure it out. Not sure where to get friends either. I'd like to place Sheila's restaurant in the huge vacant lot in front of John's store, but if push comes to shove and she still hasn't decided to move here by the 100 days mark, I will place the guest houses right there. In the evening I went to collect even more grass seeds, got ambushed by the alpha kangaroo, cooked him alive with my flaming bat and ended up sowing 500 grass seeds around the new pond area and the animal pens. On day 96, a part of my wallflowers were ready for a harvest. I did a favor for Melvin and it was just enough to convince him to join my cult, town. Went to Fletch for the deed and bought myself the second tier of the commerce license, which is going to give me an additional 10% of profit when selling any item. Thank you very much. Placed a deed for Melvin's furniture store next to the clothing store, and after that I checked the Dinkum wiki to see how much Sally the hairdresser and Sheila the chef had to like me to follow Melvin's footsteps. Sally needs 2 1/4 of a heart, so there's no way that I'm getting that in time. Sheila, on the other hand, needs only 1 more favor, so let's just hope she stops by before the 100 days are up. In the afternoon I just moved the mine entrance to the other side of the waterfall in the park and flattened a small hill in the vacant lot. The next day I started the day off with just watching the sprinklers do their job. It's kinda mesmerizing at times. But enough of that. Now, the mine entrance had been moved overnight. Now, personally, I never really loved how it looked, so I created walls around it with a dirt printer, and I first gave it a mossy stone brick look to just fit in with a waterfall. But once it was finished, I changed it to the regular grey stone bricks because it just looks so much better. But then it no longer fits with a waterfall. I bet you already know where I'm going with this. So I changed the waterfall in the river to the grey variant as well. Then I discovered in the evening that you can collect these lily pads with a dirt printer. Now it's a very small detail, but just made the river and the pond in the park pop even more. In the evening I finally actually tried to make my house livable. Now I was always using it as a storage area for all the furniture I got for free. So now I finally just gave everything a decent spot, and I also did something that I should have done a long time ago. I sorted all the clothing pieces that I had to buy from villagers as a favor to them in 5 chests, 1 for the clothing pieces of a specific gear slot. On day 98 I couldn't believe my luck. Sheila was visiting my town, so I was able to do the last favor for her and finally convinced her to open her restaurant. So quick math, buildings need 2 days to be constructed after placing the deed down and turning in the construction materials. Sounds like we'll be having a day 100 party in our newly opened restaurant. Jackpot. I got the deed from Fletch, now we have a huge debt of 750,000 things to pay off, but I'm still smiling. I place down the deed, check the materials that I need to turn in, and why does this build require brews? And what the heck is a jelly brew? So remember that jelly that I got from the crab pots a few days ago? Now, apparently you need to collect 10 of those, brew them in a keg for 2 days, and only after that they'll start constructing the restaurant. Remember how I said on day 98 that I just couldn't believe my luck? Needless to say, the remainder of the day I was hunting jellyfish, which are extremely annoying to kill. I mean, you can't use any tools while swimming, so you need to swim in front of these jellyfish, lure them to a shallow part of the river, and then hit them. Let's just say it felt like a Herculean task. Either way, I got my 30 jelly, inserted that into a few kegs, and started working on the layout of the restaurant. Now, I knew I wanted to have my own cooking area fit within the restaurant, but also have an extremely cool entrance and outdoor dining area, so I had some work to do. On day 99, I was planning to continue the Talker Box build, but then Theodore's little sister, Julia, was visiting the island again. You remember her, she organized a bug competition on day 43 where I didn't even make the top 3. But this time it was different. With my bug book in hand, I scoured the island for the most expensive bugs and caught quite a few. Even a ladybird that the museum didn't have yet. By the time it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I logged 222 points with the second spot having less than 80. This was a great way to forget the crappy day that I had yesterday. During the evening, I spent most of my time collecting resources to craft a ton of hedges. For the restaurant, I wanted to create some type of oasis that was completely different from anything else I had made so far, but I'll show you that tomorrow. Day 100, the final day. It's a weird day to say the least, because what do you do on the final day of the 100-day run? After placing the trophy from the bug competition in the corner of my workshop, I started flying as high as possible with my bat glider over the farm. I can't help but be happy with how it all turned out. I mean, the self-watering farm and the orchard just look massive from up high. I did make a small pit stop at the brewing kegs to pick up those 3 jelly brews. Now, Franklin's house is still probably my favorite build. It looks very suburban, but it also hides away an amazingly functional area in the back. I turned in the ladybird from yesterday in at the museum and just checked out all the critters that I had collected. However, I'm still a bit ashamed of how little I fished. I flew around a bit more, checking out the town square, the houses, the park, and Rain's greenhouse hidden away in the back. I accomplished a lot, but there is also still a lot to do. Fletch still has tons of licenses to collect. Franklin can still craft me a helicopter for a mere 3 million dings. We still have the undergrowth to conquer, and Sally the hairdresser still needs to make the right decision and move here. And of course we still have the restaurant to finish. Okay, not really. Did you really think I wouldn't show you how it would look after I finished the build? Now, this is how it looked on day 102. I planted a gazillion palm trees, chopped down even more to create this wooden floor. Not to mention I had to dig a ditch from the river in the park to here just to get this water surrounding the outdoor dining area. I ordered a few diner sets and tables and chairs from Melvin to have a bit of furniture as decoration, and these stone lanterns also give it a cool effect during the evening when most of the villagers spend their hard-earned dings on booze and food. But that's the story of my 100 days of Dinkum. I loved every second of this game and I can't recommend it enough. Be sure to like this video if you would like to see a part 2, and you should probably check out this video out right here. See you there.